Institutions Committee. It is February 28th, Friday, and we're picking up our capital bill, and we're gonna start doing a little bit more markup as we work through the projects. The last time we were here doing markup, we were on section 2. And I had to step out for a little bit. So I have a question on the line 12, which is the archive roof replacement. There is also in last year's capital bill, as well as the year before, there was 2.7 million that was allocated, and it does indicate the cash remaining from that's 14,286. So they have expended money. Whoops, I'm in the wrong line. I'm looking at, it's line 4. I'm sorry, this sheet here shows cash.
The 921.
It's line 4 is 921,000 left of 2 million. So some money's already gone out. Did you folks find out what that money was used for?
It was for design.
2 million? So 1 million plus went to design?
Well, no, it was, no, because,
It was like 77,000.
yeah, because there was only a million. And they spent like less than 80 grand.
For the upper roof.
Mhm.
So they had a million, I can't get it right. Oh, that's right, I was adding them.
Yeah.
So they really haven't spent much of the million.
No, that 80 was just for some design, 70.
So they're not asking for any money in 26.
Nope.
They're gonna use design, reuse for, they're using money from reuse for design.
From reuse for design.
Yeah. That's my notes anyway. I asked very specifically, he said they're gonna start some design. I said, where are you gonna get that money? He said they'll probably take it from reuse.
So are they anticipating doing any roof replacement, any work this
Not work.
fiscal year?
Just
So why, if they still have 921,000, what they built, is their design gonna be more than 921,000?
Sure hope not.
Why would they go to reuse? They're not gonna go to construction. And they have almost $1 million left.
We also asked about that FY 28-29 chunk because
Is that-
testimony was the million for FY 27 in conjunction with the money that remains from the cash was gonna be enough to finish the project.
Right.
So we asked what's that 1.2 for, but I don't have an answer.
they said just in case.
Parenthetically, it's needed.
Yeah.
Yeah, they expect it to be close to 2 million, I think.
Well, because he
Actually-
said the insulation was gonna cost more.
Exactly.
Potentially, yeah.
So buffer in the event they need the additional installation
Yep.
because of the new heat.
Right.
Standards.
So are they anticipating doing this construction work in FY 27
That was my understanding.
That was the
next
best.
summer?
No, 26.
FY 27.
Fiscal year
27.
27.
Got it.
That's what you gotta shift the calendar
Okay.
years, fiscal years.
Yeah.
Because they're not asking any money.
Yep.
In 26. So they're doing design and then they're gonna do construction.
Mhm.
Yep.
The next one was 32, Jerry, line 15. We have put in 2.4 million and they still have 2.4 million remaining in cash.
That was,
And then there's 1.5 million being asked and bonded for 26.
and the 2.4 Wanda's today signed a contract on.
Current estimates are above what they were anticipating too. So they're reconsidering those estimates and what can be cut. We mentioned the current design came in with some cement courtyard eventually.
Sitting area.
And that they're wondering if that's gonna bring the anticipated costs back down to where they thought they'd be.
Mhm.
So when are they gonna know different cost, the change in cost?
That was
Will it be
gonna be
during
wrong.
this session?
Yes,
Yeah.
I think, did he say April for that?
I
feel
think
like
that's
he does.
exactly.
Yeah.
Well, he was thinking that he was gonna need until April to get those.
It's the end of the. Okay. Oh. Okay. Let's go down to the agency of human services. This is,
Yeah.
I'm going to start line 24.
yeah, this is the HVAC upgrades. We've been putting in a lot of money in this and nothing is.
Meaning the money's in, but no work's done.
RFP came back, no results. No response to the
They had
RFP,
0 responses.
but he's gonna hope for a response within the next week or two.
What cost was that? Doesn't even count.
Okay, line 24.
Line 24.
Shouldn't be this.
I'm not going there. So last year, we put in, I know we put in. Right, but we put in cash, no, we did, we've put in a lot of work, a lot of,
300 grand.
that was bonded.
That's
All
fine.
right.
Let's see, because we put in 3 or 4. Oh, you know what, it was done, it was done, equivalent. We put in 3 more for some other for.
I'll see.
Yeah, I'm trying to think where this put.
Which, this is what building it's for, is it? Oh, correction, because I got it.
So
It's, sorry.
we do this. Come on, Connor.
I'm
Mary,
looking.
we put 700,000
I'm seeing
last year.
600,000.
Okay, here it
That's
is,
on
here
line
it is.
26.
Last year, we put in 5.1 million for HVAC in our correction.
Where do you see
facility.
that?
I don't see
No.
that.
Oh, way over on that.
Oh,
I got you.
oh, that was part of the BAA. Because
No,
originally you
well, yeah,
put 700.
We moved money around. That's what we did. We moved money around.
Right.
We put in 5.
One.
I don't know. So we added to the 700,000. Hold some cash. I think we had cash. We over to bond.
See that?
We can't. You can't hear. I give up. For HVAC, for DOC. Okay. We've put in money in the past for this. I was trying to find it. Last year, we put in 5.15 million. And the goal was to have Springfield done. And also possibly to start, I believe it was St. Johnsbury, or was it Newport?
I thought it was Newport.
Newport, for some reason, I'm thinking it was J.
So they didn't spend that 5.1.
No, because they haven't gotten any bids.
Yeah,
They haven't
and then
got-
they're asking.
Like, hold on to that.
Right,
Don't give them any more this year.
It is Newport, yeah, the same tag.
that's, so they have 5 in the bank,
They have
Basically.
5.1.
and then they're asking for 5.
Yeah, I
Correct.
mean, I
Yeah.
hate to do this, but I think that's a place we could look for some money.
Mhm.
I mean, I hate to do it.
But it's
But the
reality. though.
goal, but the goal is right now to do Springfield, and I think Springfield was coming in at about 3 million, if I remember correctly.
I believe he said about 3 million per facility with a total of about 11.
Yeah, but they didn't get any bids back.
Yeah.
Oh, this is where they're gonna go back out and look.
Yeah, we may know in a week or two if it looks like it's moving, but
Right.
yeah, that is a good chunk of
Yeah.
change.
Yeah.
Why are we just teaching the guys in building tech, the HVAC guys?
You want to build buildings? Do that.
Was it not cash though, the money? It's,
Well, we moved it.
I just
because we
don't see it
moved-
like-
I know, it's
Yeah.
not on the cash, but we moved it. We did a lot of moving around last year.
It's over here.
We did.
yeah, but I think.
Yeah, it was in, it was in cash. No, but, yeah, we did some moving around and I can't remember where the money came from. Because we did a big slog. They say capital building.
I mean, you got planning and design
Twice.
on number 9 on your cash page, so that's only 600 grand, so that's not it.
So what they have said here in this sheet that came from BGS.
Mhm.
Approved through FY 24 was 800,000 in bonds. So we did put 500,000 before you came on the committee. The previous year, he jump started it, put in 500,000. And then why do we have some?
Good in your mid-session?
No. Why did we do 2 lines last year? That doesn't make any sense to me. Planning, design, construction for HVAC, corrections facility, and then DOC, statewide HVAC. Numbers up.
I'm sorry, what's the question?
I don't know, I'm mumbling. I've got too many documents.
Me too. I need a bigger desk.
So if you look on this document here,
Yeah.
that's from the previous one, okay?
Yep.
Line 23,
Mhm.
DOC, planning, design, construction,
Mhm.
HVAC, there's 300,000 in FY 24.
Mhm.
Then you go down to line 26, again, it's correctional facilities, HVAC, planning, design, construction. We put in 700,000.
Yep.
Yeah, do 2 separate lines.
So I don't know if this
Had to
answers,
look at last year's booklet to see if there's any clues there.
What's that, Brian?
I don't know if it answers the question, but it sounds like they're gonna need temporary. Because there's a 1.5 year lag on the equipment. So might it be a line for temporary? Or
I don't, well, the question
Like
is,
if you're-
it's the same thing, so why would we have done 2 separate lines? That's what I don't understand.
Right. It's just,
Maybe it's just a typo.
it's said, it's just said a little differently, but it's the same thing.
I don't remember, but between those 2 lines, if you look in the total, way over on the right-hand column, way over in the blue,
Mhm.
the 2 lines, there's 300,000 for lines 23.
Yep.
Which is planning, design, construction for HVAC systems, upgrades. Oh, I think I know what that is.
5.15.
I think I know what that is.
What is it?
That 300,000 was to go towards any upgrades that could happen in other facilities like the break rooms or the cafeteria. It was
Oh,
a
okay.
common area.
breaker units for shared spaces?
And we wanted them to at least get started on that. I think that's what that 300,000, because it says HVAC system upgrades. So I think it was those little spots in certain facilities and maybe they could jumpstart before we did the whole system. And then lines 26 is HVAC systems, planning, design and construction for upgrades and replacements. So that is doing, the replacement was in Springfield to do HVAC in the whole facility. And then what's part of that money could also to work with that 300,000 for upgrades and other facilities to at least give them some comfort rest. And I think the jump on lines 26, the jump from 700,000 in FY 25 to 5.15, I think we pulled cash into bonds to do that.
It all rings a bell. I don't remember 2 different line items, though, is the thing, you know?
Yeah, but
Yeah.
but I think it's to go towards upgrades, because we talked about that first.
Mhm.
And they had 500,000 from the previous biennium. So if you look on this sheet that came from BGS, when they testified last week, approved through FY 24 was 800,000. So that's where it comes.
Okay, gotcha.
300,000 from lines 23 of last year's capital bill, and there was 500,000 for the previous biennium.
Okay,
That's where that 800 comes from. That would have been FY 23 and 24. So then last year we put in 5.1 million with the goal of doing Springfield. And then what was left, it could maybe start another facility, but, or at least continue in doing those comfort spots
mhm.
in some of the other facilities. And now we're asking for another 5 million and then $1 million FY 27. I think we can pull some money there.
Just-
I know it's a heavy lift, but I hate to tie up that kind of money if we just aren't gonna go to construction.
Yeah, we might have more of an indication after break though, if Joe hears anything. It's,
So it's what Brian was saying, a 1.5 year lag in getting the air.
One and a half year lag for the equipment, but he did also say that work could begin before that equipment arrived if he wanted to start doing the fit up.
Right, but you still, I said here, so it wouldn't start till 27.
Yeah,
It's 16 million to do St. Albans, so that's why they're holding that off.
yes.
and your memory's good, it was 2 lines in our version of the spreadsheet, passed out last year. so-
Yeah, well, that's what's here, yeah. I don't know, I think that's a place we could pull some money.
I got it circled, that's for sure.
Well, what'd you say we have to save 5 million, right?
Well, the goal, what the speaker has asked, is if we could find 5 million to,
Sean's excited over there, he just found it.
no, 5 million to help appropriations.
Yeah.
Well,
So we've already found $1 million.
there you go.
We've already found $1 million. to help.
And in this 5,
Well, you're not gonna do the whole
No, I
5.
know
I'm
that.
thinking of cutting that to maybe 4.
So, I mean, would it be appropriate for today just to mark that as something we're gonna circle back to once we get more information?
Makes sense to me.
So I'm thinking you could do 4 million and FY 26. Keep $1 million from summer.
Yeah, I've just been making notes, and I think a lot of this stuff, and certainly to the discretion of the group, but there are things that you could tweak 5-10%, and I think the project would still be fine.
You know, we've tried that in the past. On the surface, it looks simple, but then you get into the nuances in each project. We have tried that in the past. And it just plays out really different project by project, because we've tried doing that.
It's like, line 14, for example. And that's a phased project, the slate roof stuff,
Yeah, I mean, we've done money for them before,
and we'll continue to do so because it's a huge ongoing project.
right?
But the point, I think if you were to tweak that, $100,000, it's not gonna change the outcome a lot. You're not gonna find $5 million there, but and I've got a bunch of notes that I've just been collecting and kind of waiting to see, what the aggregate findings are. Some of the comments may not even be necessary.
Alice.
my
Fewer of them will be well received.
Yeah, well,
Most of the job, yeah.
because we've put money in that before too.
Madam Chair, the $1 million you said
But I was just picking that out as a.
that we.
Yeah.
Is that, did you take that from that 5.1?
No, the million there was, what was built in our budget was previous money that was freed up in cash.
Oh, that $1 million for the, was it VSC
It was
thing?
For the state colleges, and they weren't going
Oh.
forward with Vail,
Yeah.
so we freed that up for
So
appropriation.
that counts towards the $5 million goal.
And we've already transferred $1 million over.
And don't forget on line 10, there's $223 in cash.
Catch cushions, baby.
You ratted it to 219.5.
Don't forget you found a Canadian penny yesterday. So
That's mine.
So
If you just do that a dozen more times, we're done.
24.
That's a dime this morning to start the day.
You have a rationale for 4 million, because I was thinking even less of that, by the way.
I don't want to look like we're not doing much. So if you slash it too much, it gives the impression that you're really not supporting the HVAC. You got to be careful with some of this
Right.
because it is such a volatile issue with the staff
Yep.
and it's a volatile issue with the
Gotcha.
health. And
Yep.
if you slam it too much, it's going to look like you're pulling the rug out from underneath.
Gotcha.
Because they don't know of the money that's previously been put in. So it's a
Or
delicate
the
balance.
politics.
And for the regarding lines 41 through 43, it looks like Scott is going to meet with the group at 2:30 today briefly. Which are the Bennington,
The 3Ds,
Brattleboro
yeah.
and Barry projects.
So who's meeting
Research, center ourselves.
for what, Mary?
Scott and the folks who are working on the 3Ds.
3Ds, the 3Bs,
See if
the killer
there's some
bees,
sort
yeah.
of alternate,
3Bs. Okay, circle with me first before you folks go.
Okay.
Maybe quickly when we break for lunch,
Okay.
just so I can update you. A little something. Well, circle with me so we're all on the same page.
Little something, something.
Hmm.
Get a little something, something. Get on the same
Just so
page.
we're all on the same page.
Good.
It's in the same chapter.
Yeah,
Just real quick, for the HVAC in the proposed language, is it for which facility is it? Or is it for multiple or?
it's multiple what, if you go to this document here, go to this document here,
What I think could be maybe.
it says, it,
Much shorter than
go to this document here,
lots
you're gonna
of
have to have a lot of documents.
finishes and say
What they're doing, their priority is Springfield, Newport. And then it is the St. Johnsbury, Caledonia work camp, which I would really hold off on that
Yep.
because of what's happening with the treatment services that they're looking at doing. Because if you have to get in there and renovate that building, you're gonna be doing the HVAC at the same time. So they're doing design for some temporary areas in those 4 facilities, and that's done. But it's not in the living units. They're only doing some of the common areas. The design documents are done. They are looking to have a construction manager. It kind of went out, they didn't have any bids that were received for a construction manager. They've gone out looking for construction manager again. That will then give them a more estimate in terms of what dollars are needed for the projects. So they have in the bank right now, 4.7 million
Right.
right now.
And he said that would get them through to the end. I know.
They have schematic designs done, but get them through which end?
I don't know to the end, but they're like 1 to 1.5 year, a year and a half out.
That's what I'm saying.
So like they don't, I say
That's why I'm saying I think we could look and
push that.
maybe not do 5, do 4.
Sure. Do 3.
That's what I was.
I'd be a
understand.
little leery.
Okay, so I mean, but a million's a million, so that's something. And we can.
I understand the optics even if
You
it's.
have to think how things are gonna play out there.
Right.
They play different in what place in it.
Right. Okay.
You have to balance something. And there's already $1 million and that's like 27. So why don't we pencil in 4
Yeah.
in FY 26?
Write that down.
I gotta write it down.
You write it down.
I have, I'm not the actual clerk. I probably am not.
That would be nice to explore. Of course, Scott doesn't know we're meeting, because he forgot to let Scott know.
Oh, boy.
We're off our game. We all need a week off. We all need a week.
It is a tough crowd.
No, there's too many. There's just too much. What I'm finding now with the capital bill, there is too many moving pieces. Because you've got all these bonded dollars, then you've got cash. And then some of these projects go biennium, and they're all interconnected with like 2 bienniums.
Yep.
And then with those bienniums, you still got a division of bond, you got a division of cash for some of the same projects.
Mhm.
And it's really getting hard to track.
Used to be easy.
It used to be easy because you only had one spreadsheet with $100. Now you got all these other funnels coming in.
It'd be so much easier if the cash got treated the same.
It is treated
I'm not kidding. I'm kidding. I'm not starting that
the
again.
same, but the problem is, you're moving around between different documents,
Hmm.
between different funding sources. And it's really difficult to keep track of that. Because your spreadsheets here don't show up what's been done in the past. They show what you're doing.
Well, I tell
By
you,
anything you're going forward, you can see what's bond and what's cash. But you also have to know what was done 3 years ago for cash and for bonds, and it doesn't show up until
it would
you.
be nice in the future if these spreadsheets showed what remaining balances there were for the given project, so you could see it all in one document.
What normally was done, and I showed this to the committee. Normally was done when the administration proposed, they had the paragraph and they had this chart underneath, and you could follow, they had that in the book.
That's super helpful.
They're not doing that. They're not doing that. So that's part of the problem. We're trying to keep track of what has been appropriated in the past.
Says, boy, that would save so much time.
I know. So when we got this budget, that's the first thing I said, where are the charts? Right. And the administration said, well, we didn't do it. I said, well, we need to do it so we can see what's going on. Well, we don't do it that way. I said, well,
We need to.
you do
We
it that
put
way.
language in to direct them that they have to go back to it.
You could. I've mentioned it.
And I think we should because,
I mentioned it to Wanda,
right,
and she was stunned that this was not included.
Yeah.
And she said, I'll take care of it for our projects.
Yeah,
So
but
she's of the old school that understands it.
Well, I mean, you're only being shown the tip of the iceberg in some.
Exactly.
How are you supposed to make a decision?
Exactly.
that's exactly
That's
right.
part of the.
I get it. I get it.
I-
Right, that,
So now each line item, we gotta stop and talk and ask that question.
So I want that we have language in somewhere that our budgets for the future, whoever the committee is, it comes back with that information. It's critical.
So can someone keep track of that for me?
Yes.
Please.
How many, how about that in the future, just one buy-in?
Well, no, going forward, well, no, we'll figure out the
We'll
language.
figure out,
Yeah, whatever the heck it is, you know.
but we do need that in there because this is not working well.
And the 1 million, you're taking it out of this line 26, right? There.
24.
Four.
That's 24, you got
Okay,
5
there.
million.
Right.
You
Okay.
got 5 million in FY 26, and you got 1 million in FY 27.
Mhm.
27, we're not considering right now, correct?
Okay,
But I thought the $1 million comment was pertains to
Million.
26.
what I was suggesting was 4 million for FY 26 instead of 5.
Right.
Instead of 5.
Yeah, okay. That's what I heard.
Depending what numbers come back, when we get back from town meeting,
Mhm.
we may find you don't need 1 million in FY 7, we could cut that to 500,000.
Yeah.
Put a placeholder there.
Yeah.
Don't know that yet. But we could do that, but it depends on the numbers that come back that Joe may have.
Now, I assume, and I could be mistaken, but the $5 million target that's been alluded to is applicable to FY 26. Is this,
Yeah, they can,
this 27 doesn't do anything for appropriations this year.
right, but our budget is based on a 2-year.
I understand.
So we just,
Well,
it just kind of goes in the pot. We don't, it could come from 27 for us. It could come from 26 for us. It doesn't matter because we can't give them bonded dollars. We have to give them
the
cash.
cash, yeah.
So
So
by
some
definition is,
things, some things that may be picked up with cash in our bill, regardless if it's FY 26 or 27.
Yeah.
We could then pick that up with bonds, but then freeze up the cash. We've got to work within our bonded budget of right now, our bonded
To bring in some walnut shells for my desk.
Our bonded budget right now for 2 years is 106,890,000. We've got to stay,
Really need to get.
we got to stay within that box for bonded dollars. Can't go above that box for the bond. So we could do, depending where we are, if we, like, we've already picked up $1 million. If we do the 4 million, we've
Hmm.
already picked up $1 million in bonding. We've already freed up. So we could pick some project or a combination of projects that they're proposing in cash. Pick that up and bond.
Mhm.
So then it frees that. I don't know.
Understood.
So we have.
But we're not gonna know that until we go through the whole spreadsheet a few times, how that's all gonna
Yeah.
play out.
Just to get myself recalibrated, so we have 1.6. 1.06, whatever, 106 million
Plus, yeah.
in bonded, plus the 14 million cash. And the 14 million cash is where they want 5 million out of it.
What we have right now for cash is I don't like the math, probably 15.
Reportedly, we have 16, almost 17 million.
Freed up a million.
Somewhere.
We freed up a
16.
million, so we have 15.9 in cash. As we freed up. If you look, our line's 180. Previous year fund balance 1.262.
Mm-hmm.
1 million of that, we handed back to the general fund in our.
That's a VSC thing.
Yeah. So we are at 15.9 in cash.
Yeah.
But we'll figure it out. We're just not there yet. Since it's a real step by step.
It's it.
Don't get ahead of your skis,
I'll get in Sunday.
because
Ah.
it gets really complicated.
In the next year, and coming for adjustments, theoretically, we would get more cash to work with based on the formula, same form,
Yeah, we're just.
whatever the heck that is at that time.
And the other thing that could happen this time around too, just really has not happened before, and I don't know if it will happen. But I know that Debt Affordability Committee met last fall. And they're recommending now.
Yes.
Which I'm gonna have a side note, you know where I'm going. Because when they started proposing a cash fund,
5 million.
I gave a lot of pushback.
5.1.
I gave a lot of pushback on that because I said, what is to ensure that our bonding capacity won't be decreased? They said, oh, we're not gonna look at the cash amount that you're gonna get. You're gonna keep the same bonding capacity. Well, they've gone through 2 cycles and it has gone down. It has gone down over $10 million,
Mhm.
over $10 million in bonding capacity because they know we have cash. So we're at the
But
same.
you don't, and you're even less, we've talked about that without getting into what happens to the cash. Is the percentage of the general fund, what you're working with here is 1/3 to 40% below historical resources available for the capital bill.
Right.
This is.
I mean, one time we were doing a capital bill that was 30 million a year. I mean, I remember that one.
Well, that's when you were here during the Ford administration. That's when it was.
No, this was back in the late 90s.
Really?
Yeah,
So things got skinny.
yeah. I mean, I've been here as high as where it was 80 million in 1 year. We only did 1 year, 80.
Yeah.
I was here, we've done 80 million in 1 year. 'Cause we used to do 1-year budgets up until 2012. And then we shifted to 2 years. Thank God we did, because then it gives you flexibility.
Right.
But my fear was, you start saying there's cash out there. There were two things that came up. I said, our bonding capacity recommendation is gonna go down. And everybody said, no, 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 it's not. Well, this year it went down from 54 million each year down to 50.
Mhm.
The year before that, before the 54 million, I think was 60 million or 62 million. So it's going down. It doesn't mean the pressure's going away.
No,
The other thing, once people in this building start realizing there's a sugar bowl of a cash,
Yep.
they're full of cash from that. They just haven't figured it out yet. But let me tell you, once they figure that out,
It's a feeding frenzy
gonna be a
in the shark.
Hey,
and all you need is one word, notwithstanding.
yeah,
That's all you need. I've been saying this for 3.5, 4 years. We haven't seen that part
I
play
didn't
out.
follow you on notwithstanding.
I made my unsuccessful arguments on that cash. I won't rehash one.
well,
But that was-
notwithstanding Sean's.
No, the language, the law is what the cash fund is to be used for. And if members out there in the hallway or on the floor want to use
I see
it
what
for
you mean.
something else, you gotta have a notwithstanding.
Right.
Regardless of
Yeah.
what the law says, the money can be used for, we're gonna use it for this instead.
So
Only so much loose cash kicking around.
this isn't a money thing, but like you get a different level of pressure on this because you have capacity, or diminished capacity. But you also, you put the money out the door, as we're finding the last couple of years, post-COVID especially. You don't have the workers, the people out there to do the jobs. So it's equally, that's his own problem.
You know, the other problem is we got supply chain issues.
Yeah.
Reality, so you,
If tariffs kick in, our project costs are gonna go sky high. Sky high.
Yeah, that's.
So, you know, there's this whole ripple effect that's gonna impact everything here. Yeah.
When we were talking about the HVAC a minute ago, I remember during one of the presentations, they'd mentioned that one in particular would be very affected by the tariffs. If that were to happen, would we go through the budget? Because I'm assuming we don't know for many months, we may be out of session and we'll find out what the tariffs are gonna be. But would we potentially come back during the budget adjustment and say we're gonna cut some of it out and just push it on to the next year when there may not be?
We don't, I mean, budget adjustment, you would look at the new information and then I don't know what decisions would be made. But the budget adjustment is you look at the new information that's come in and then you adjust your dollars. It could go up, it could go down. You could say, wait a minute, maybe we don't do this project.
Because I agree with you with in change of that 5 million and maybe making it 4, but if it's just not wise to do it all, then you might need to lower it. I don't know.
Just don't. That's why we have a check. I can see I'm gonna lose my voice. Ben, do you have a clean draft? And it was to Phil?
I think I sent it, did I send it to you last night, Phil? Or this week, so bad, no, sorry. Actually, no, I just got it this morning, so sorry, I lost track of time.
Has it been approved?
Without the sunset?
Yeah, it's been approved, it's all good.
Why don't you send it to Phil?
Yep.
Folks, you guys get set up. And then we'll clean up our papers, but what I want to say about the bonding city that's a little different this year. The debt affordability committee, when they made their recommendations in the fall, they knew that they were cutting it back. They were concerned that some of the projects haven't moved forward. For a variety of reasons, the projects hadn't moved forward. And they made a statement, we're doing 50,000 for each year, but we're gonna look at it the fall of this year and reassess where we are. Dollars that have gone out the door for projects that have been approved and the pressures that may be out there. And they may readjust that 50 million to a little higher. And I've never seen it make that recommendation, make that statement. So I don't know what's gonna happen.
Before we get off the topic, so we had the treasurer here early in the session, talking about, how we're trying to wean ourselves from bonding and to pay our debt down. And so that's why, part of why we were getting less bonded dollars for the capital budget. But then within the BAA, depending on the House and the Senate version, there's either 14 or $20 million supposed to be removed from bond payments. Which, this is the same person making recommendations, so I'm confused.
That was to pay off old bonds.
Which has an adverse effect on what we may have for the up to 4% cash next year.
Not really,
Well,
because
of course it does, but you have a greater principal balance.
we looked at this and gave approval for that
Well,
3 years ago or 4 years ago. We did to pay off some of that. And it really doesn't save you much in debt payments. I mean, it was to pay it off. They were really to look at specific bonds and how long the payment schedule is and the interest rate. Why they haven't used it, I don't know. But that authority was given 3 years ago. We worked on that 3 years ago.
well, sure, obviously you're gonna pay off
The administration.
whatever you have, whatever you can pay off for the highest, interest.
I think it was his treasurer, wasn't it? Beth was there?
I think
So-
Beth was.
Yeah, we did.
It was towards the end.
But anyway, without arguing which one of those policies has more benefit, they're completely incongruent and it comes out of the same office. I'm saying.
Welcome to the world, being in government.
I'm here until.
But the one thing they have in common is they
1
both
o'clock,
have a
I have to be done.
detrimental impact on what's available for the capital.
We could be 31 million, or 31 trillion in debt.
So Ben is before us.
That would be one stupid creditor with a lot of money. If you bet the state of Vermont.
We're on, let's shift gears. While we have been,
I am for you copies. You got me. Don't worry, I'm not going anywhere.
well, shift gears, get out your file folder in 219.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear what you said.
219.
219.
I know.
And Ken Schatz said he would be here, but he's not in the room yet.
Oh, he's zooming in.
He's zooming in.
Good.
I just heard the game, was that him? I heard something.
It was me.
Oh, that was him.
That one's crazy.
That me.
Ben is singing.
So this has already gone through proofreading.
Yeah, it's ready to vote.
Anyone, right?
Well, it's different.
I know.
Yeah,
He is not,
no, he's on
A
it.
lot of committee,
we gotta just get.
competition.
Well, we both had, he had H50.
No, we're not about next. Oh, yeah, yeah.
Ken Schatz is coming in and I'm going after his copy.
Thank you, Phil.
Hey, Ken.
Morning.
Mass exodus.
I know. Nobody wants to vote on this one.
We may vote out 2 bits today.
I'm gonna beat Connor.
Why?
Tina had a 250, ahead of H50.
Yeah, you might be, man.
I don't think it's fair. That's why I keep asking him.
But Connor's bill's gonna hit the floor first.
Huh?
Connor's bill's gonna hit the
Yeah, you're right.
It's 'cause you
No
have
props.
no props. Yeah. So on that roll call sheet, you call the chair, the vice chair next to us.
Yep, it's on that. It's on that.
Is
It's,
that listed out?
that's how it's.
Oh, did I'm going home.
And we were right. They asked us.
Probably going somewhere.
We were at the
First
training.
half, about 80.
I was the only one who went down.
My wife's been
That had it.
all week, so I try to get back. It's
Had it and had that ready to go.
Oh,
quite
Where do you go? How far do you go?
in Richmond,
Okay.
so not too bad, about 30 minutes.
it's Friday. It's a double one.
You know what that means.
It's a double one.
That's right.
Oh, yeah, maybe even a triple with a week off, right?
Right, well, maybe I'll save that for tomorrow night, the third one. Still gotta keep my wits
All
about
of
me.
the staff has piles on it.
Yeah, get rid of us jerks.
You're leaving, yes.
Absolutely.
So, who worked on this last night? I don't remember. Who worked on this? It's Troy. Troy, you, and a little bit of me worked on this last night, right?
Want me to put it up on the screen? Because there are a
Sure.
handful of changes.
Ken can see it. Ken, you've received a copy of it, right?
I do have a copy of a bill that was, Ben sent me this morning.
Okay, great. Well, that's the draft that we're gonna be going through.
Thank you.
Yeah, so
It's draft 1.1.
I'll share my screen.
We make the bill shorter because we got rid of the findings.
You want me to just go in, or you want me to wait?
Well, one big change, we did get rid of the findings.
Yes.
First bill is introduced, add findings and intent. We had not really taken any testimony on the findings. It was just picked up from what was in the report. Findings do not go in the green books. They're not part of law or statutes. And we decided just to do away with findings, but keep the intent. The intent language that you're gonna see in draft 1.1 is not going to the green books. And that's gonna be for you, the reporter of the bill,
Yep.
what I just said.
Yeah.
You know what I just said.
Not really.
That's what I thought.
John, I've got you. Representative Sweeney, since we're live.
Yeah.
I've got you. We can talk about it.
That's all yours, Ben.
Okay, so as Madam Chair said, this is draft 1.1 of an amendment to H 219. An act relating to creating a family support pilot program, or well, so that is one thing that we do need to change now that I think about it, is change the title.
You do that after it's passed.
Right, you do put in language at the very bottom that says, and after passage, the should change. So I could make that right now because I know that doesn't need to be edited. But I'll do that when we get there. So as Madam Chair said, we struck the findings and kept the intent, and the formatting is just a bit different, but the substance is the same. Section 2 remains unchanged. Section 3 has a handful of changes in it. So you will see now that the title of section 128 is now Incarcerated Parents and Guardians Family Support Program. So it is no longer the pilot program. And then it was just the Family Support Program. So the Department of Corrections shall establish the Family Support Program, provide free parenting and family support to all incarcerated individuals who are parents and guardians. So the purpose of the program doesn't change, just the nature of it being a pilot does. You will see a handful of changes in subdivision 2, which was striking enhanced capacity and so it's now just intended to provide. Oh, and there was also changes to that lead-in language on lines 7 and 8, that the program shall include now individualized services and programming intended to provide the following. One of which has been amended a bit in subdivision 2, striking enhanced capacity and, so it's just intended to provide resources to incarcerated parents and guardians. And then a change to subdivision 3, which includes here on lines 14 and 15, that the child family visitations or friendly visitation spaces in consultation with the department. So you work with the department to create those spaces. And then I believe there are no other changes in the subdivisions.
5 and 6.
5 and 6 flip-flopped as far as the order, but the substance remains the same. Subsection B remains the same. Subsection C is new, making this contingent on funding so that the family support program established pursuant to this section shall operate only to the extent funds are appropriated for its operation. So basically saying if it's not funded, it doesn't operate. Then there is the annual report. I changed the wording of subdivision 2 a little bit because it was concerning statewide implementation since it was a pilot. So now it's changed to be consideration and any progress towards sustained statewide programming and gender parity. It's essentially ensuring that the program, while intended to be statewide through its implementation, can sustain that programming and the gender parity that it's meant to espouse.
Yep.
Any questions on that? Because I know that wasn't something that was discussed, but something I caught when I was editing.
Very good.
You'll see a new section 4 entitled Department of Corrections Family Support Program Implementation. And in lines 1 through 3, that the Department of Corrections shall first implement the family support program established under section 128 at the Chittenden Regional Correctional Facility and Northern State Correctional Facility.
You know, we haven't, what, DOC? We haven't sent this draft to DOC. Have we? I forgot.
Too.
They didn't have really any problems with the way we're doing it, right? So we're gonna need to send this to DOC,
I don't anticipate any pushback.
right? But we gotta get it to them.
What about the Secretary of Administration? No, and ACCD was on board with it, right?
No, not the parents.
Yeah,
ECC.
this is all DOC.
Okay.
I think you're talking about you're on age 50.
Oh, right, sorry, wrong one. I take that back.
Struck from the record.
Yeah.
Stricken. Yeah, and as far as the DOC, I mean, obviously it's the committee's prerogative to call them in and get their opinion. Substantively, this really hasn't changed. It's really the form that the program is taking shape as. You know, before it was just the pilot, but now it's a sustained program. But the locations that the pilot was first going to be established at remain the same in the implementation framework. And then as far as the numbers, they're just broken down a little bit more in section 5, and I'll get to that. And then again, the only thing that really affects them is their involvement in designing those spaces.
They've agreed to in testimony, Melissa. What we're gonna do, folks, hang on, Connor. He's going to read changes. Before we vote this out, we're gonna steer and read it line by line.
Okay.
We're gonna read the language line by line to make sure everyone understands what it's. And that's when you can ask questions.
So
Yeah, just something we touched on before. My only concern is if Approps doesn't agree with the appropriation there, I don't want them eating $400,000 out of like vacancies or something, you know, so, but will they be required to do this if it passes the statute?
You're a little ahead of the game. Hang on,
No, because of that contingent on funding language.
yeah.
Oh, okay, I guess I,
As
yeah, I guess.
subsections, new subsection C.
Oh, perfect, yeah, I'll cover it, great.
But it gives you the flexibility. That's what we did with the pretrial supervision.
Yeah, it makes sense.
Similar approach.
And you took out the sunset language.
Yes, I did. Yeah, so section 5 is the appropriation. Before it was just one subsection of $400,000 to go and support it. Now it's being broken down to be more specific. Subsection A, the sum of $114,870 is appropriated from the general fund to DOC in fiscal year 26 for the purpose of supporting the family program at Chittenden Regional Correctional Facilities because it already exists. And then you'll see a slight difference in subsection B, other than the sum being different of 276,208. It's used for the purpose of establishing and supporting the program at Northern State Correctional Facility.
My hunch is when this gets to appropriations, they may tweak with that language to more appropriate for their world.
I have the same feeling.
Uh,
I have the same feeling.
Yeah, they're gonna tweak it for that. But the concept is there. I know Trevor has got that concept. And then 114,000 is on top of what they already get.
Yeah.
And then the 276 is new to establish the one in Newport. Oh, and they'll probably tweak that.
You'll see, and at this point, the sunset has been eliminated. And the effective date remains the same. And then now I'm going to add that title language.
Folks, Ken, do you have anything you want to weigh in on? Because this, so if you could identify yourself for the record.
You must be on mute.
No,
Yeah, we can't. There you go.
This is
No, I
Ken
can-
Schatz. Thank you for the record. This is Ken Schatz. I'm the interim CEO at Lund. With me is Kim LaRoche, the Director of Parent-Child Center Services at Lund, and Sharon Lifshitz, who is our Director of Development and Communication. And so, again, I want to thank you for the work you've done on this bill. It looks great. We definitely greatly appreciate it. A couple of minor points, especially as Ben reread it, I did notice that, you know, and we've talked about this quite a bit, you used the word first, shall first implement the program at, which is on page 4, line 1. And again, I think we've talked about it at length, but just to make it clear, especially to the reporter of the bill, that the program does exist already at the Women's Correctional Facility. So one question is whether, just to make sure that people's understanding is up to date. And then we've slightly modified the numbers. I don't know if you want the more up-to-date numbers or just Ben appropriately use the numbers from the original document that we gave him. Again, I know this may be tweaked at the appropriations level too. If you want me to give you the more up-to-date numbers, we're glad to do that right now.
You know, this is going to Appropriations Committee, Ken. Let's update the numbers, but I think it's going to change once it gets into our probes.
We do understand that.
So why don't you just give the updated numbers?
I'll let Kim do that.
Hi, Kim LaRoche, Director of PCC Services at Lund. So the sum of the funds needed to support the Chittenden Regional Correctional Facility, the already established site, is 115,424. And the sum of the total for the new Northern is 268,155. So it's actually
165 or 55?
155.
155.
268.
So it's about $10,000 less than I originally provided.
I had 115, I had 268 in my original notes. So I'm wondering if we go back to page 4, top, lines 1. The Department of Corrections shall continue to provide family support program at Chittenden and to implement. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I think we
That
can
same
do it,
thought, Too, as Ken did.
but just for the committee's knowledge, I mean, this program exists as a contract. It does not exist under statute. So we are implementing the family support program established under the statute at PRCF and Northern State.
And the statute requests DOC to consider expanding it statewide by 2028. So the program, it's a new program, technically.
It's a new program and statute.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
And so I was very intentional in saying shall first implement as opposed to the appropriation language, since there's already funding that goes towards this program through DOC's budget, of sort of the difference there, because since it's already at Chittenden Regional, you're going to continue to support it through those funds. But since it's not at Northern State, you have to establish and support. So that was very intentional drafting. It, you know, can change based off of the committee's prerogatives, but I just, you know, just so you understand the intention behind those specific words.
That's good.
Does that make you, does that make it a little better? Yeah.
Yes, I appreciate that explanation, and that is fine.
Okay.
Good daylight time.
So,
And I can put the slightly tweaked numbers and language on the screen now if you'd like.
no, what I'd like to do, you've got that, I want the committee to go to the beginning of the bill. Okay, we're gonna go section by section. And please read it. Think about it. If you've got a question, ask. Or you have a comment, okay? Every time we vote a bill on committee, we read it line by line before we vote it out, so we know what we're voting. Because I know a lot of this is, well, the language is here because of this, language is over here because of this. You gotta read the whole thing to really understand it. Will and Joe,
You want us to read it out loud or to ourselves?
talk to yourself.
And just for the record, I'm not gonna replow the field, but I have no issue with the program. I do have an issue with the program being statute, which I've brought up and not looking to re-argue.
And questions as they arise, or do you want to say section one? Any questions? How do you want to run
Say
it?
section one, give you time to read it
All right.
and go ask if there's any question. Or on section one. And maybe while we're doing this, maybe we could get a copy of this Phil sent to Isaac.
I send him a message.
He sent who?
I'll send the updated one. to him.
Isaac.
Yeah. Delivery.
And they need to see the language,
Yeah,
so,
no, I know. Okay, just let me know that I told.
okay. Question is that section one, the intent. Okay. But two. This is expanding the responsibilities of the Commissioner of Corrections. So if you see on line 15, you've got C, the Commissioner's charged with the following responsibilities. That's current law. We're adding on line 17, a new responsibility to the Commissioner of Corrections. That's why it's underlined. This does not, it's not in statute right now.
I guess I'd have a question. Line 24, or I'm sorry, line 17 says to include funding sufficiently provide and sustain, yet we can tell them exactly how much money they're gonna get. That seems to be in conflict.
So to explain that one, so that's the appropriation for this year. But we can't commit the legislature in future years to spend certain amounts of money. So the way that you can sort of get around that to a degree is require in the departments or the commissioner's responsibilities to suggest or propose an amount that's sufficient to fund it. So it's saying your responsibilities in the proposed budget that the governor then rolls in and proposes to the legislature an amount that's sufficient to operate the program.
Okay.
And
So by definition, what we give them is sufficient.
that's the charge of the commissioner.
Opposed to saying, utilize the appropriated funds in the total of.
Yeah, you can't do that.
Okay.
Yeah, it's unconstitutional.
Lots.
Just, that's why I'm asking the question.
No, that's a good question.
In conflict.
Yeah. Anything on section 2? So in section 2, folks, for the new members, on lines 18, pursuant to section 128 for this title.
Mhm.
Where's 128?
No idea.
You better know. You're the reporter.
Yeah.
You better know.
Well, that was
So
actually,
You're
that, I gotta go
reporter.
look in one of these books.
No, flip the page.
like section 3.
Oh, all right, gotcha.
Those are important linkages to understand, particularly if you're the reporter of the bill.
Yeah,
And this wouldn't be in the green books yet.
It's not in the books.
got it.
I'll work with you,
Um,
Sweeney.
Yeah, I mean, this is all.
That's why we're taking it slow by, so slow, because I want to bring you folks along. There's a way to read law. Very different than a novel.
My question to you, when we got down to the very end on 21, what is 32 BSA 306? That was my,
So that's the governor's proposed budget
that is, okay.
That's it.
or the charge to do it.
The charge, okay.
So a reporter of the bill has to pay attention to those things. Has it been proved?
Just emailed it to me. I think so. I'll double check.
It's been proved. So. Program is pursuant to section 128. So if you flip the page on section 3 on page 2, then it says 28 BSA, section 128 is added to read. So we're creating a brand new section in law. That's why it's all underlined. So
Yep.
this is brand new.
Mhm.
So let's at least read A, make sure we understand. And then we go into the 1 through 6 bullets.
But this is where it's just a little confusing, like as a reporter, like it's because or I don't know, it's just a little confusing that they've been doing this since 2003 at the women's facility. We're just trying to get parity here and have them establish this program up at Northwest,
We're doing two
North,
things.
Northern, whatever it's called.
We're doing two things.
Beyond that.
We're putting, this is where,
Right.
this is what you need to report in the bill. It's
Right.
really important. This program exists under contract and has since
2003.
23. What we're doing, because it's been so successful, we're doing two things with this bill.
Mhm.
We're codifying program. Codifying means putting it in law. And because it's been so successful in one of our facilities, the women's facility, for the past 22 years, we feel it's time, the committee feels it's time that we codify this program in statute and that we start looking at phasing it, the implementation of this program in our male facilities. And that's what this piece of legislation does. It's what it does. I'm not taking over your job. That's what it does.
Yeah.
That's your introductory words. Cool. Well,
I have a or can we ask about subsection A and section 3?
Yeah.
Okay. So on line 7, it says shall include, and then it has the 6 bullet points of that. Does that mean that all 6 of those have to be fulfilled by the charities?
Yeah, intended to provide it on line 7.
There's an,
yeah, the word
okay,
intended.
intended, okay, good. Okay.
Yeah, so basically the way that this would operate in reality is that they must strive to do all of this.
That's what, that was the exact word I was thinking.
Let's read the bullets if folks are okay with it. Could you just refresh my memory on cross-system coordination? Is that working? Oh, that's number 5, lines 19, improve cross-system coordination and collaboration. Is that cross-system coordination working with support entities on the outside of the correctional system?
They're saying like VCF schools.
Okay,
Yes, that's accurate. It certainly could also be internal, but it is primarily, I think, focused on outside agencies that may be providing services or support for the caregiver, for the child, or other relevant family members.
Huh? So the reason I asked, when I wanted to be clear what it meant, but I could see somebody on the floor getting up and asking to interrogate the reporter and ask, what do you mean by cross-system coordination?
You work with.
Well, I would try to answer it the way Jess said it yesterday. You know, I would just, I'll get some written.
Man, I'm not pointing fingers at you. I'm just pointing that out.
Oh, and that's when I might be
That the
looking
people,
over at Connor and saying, get your, you know what up and protect me.
Man,
So Representative Sweeney, in that situation, if you ever have like a moment, you can call for a recess and then we can confer as well.
Yeah, very good.
on that and cross-system coordination, is there anything in particular that makes you think that would get called out? Cause
because it's not a term that's used
Okay,
very much. And that's where you have to be. I'm only trying to help folks as you come along, because you're gonna see a lot of stuff on the floor.
And you should always be
No.
prepared for it.
and what I was gonna say to that though, and I think you said it yesterday, was sometimes language that is used in like a nonprofit setting or in an educational setting differs from what we put in here. So why? So that was my question. Why is this in the bill if it's maybe not statutory language that's typically used?
What is,
That cross-system coordination, I mean, is that the only way to define it, or is there a different word we could put in there to avoid any?
It's not that it's wrong. I think it's this general person in the floor.
Oh.
Before yesterday, did you know what I meant?
I mean, I probably heard it in passing, but I wouldn't have
Right,
thought to use it.
But I'm saying but what Al's pointing out, somebody might have a question, but I don't know what that means.
Could
and they
be
would ask.
you.
It could be exactly. It could
So
be
then my
anything.
follow-up to that is that the only word or phrase used in here that you think
No,
would-
let's just use that as an example.
as an example? Okay.
Because what you're gonna see over the next 2 or 3 weeks, particularly the next 3 weeks, you're gonna see a lot of interrogations on the floor. And it could be on some specific word, it could be on some specific paragraph, how it comes in a paragraph in a bill.
Mhm.
That's what, as a reporter, the bill, you have to be prepared.
Yep.
Doesn't mean it's gonna happen. But the worst thing is for a reporter to say, well, I'm not sure about that.
Yep.
I can get back to you after third reading.
Yep.
Or they keep saying, well, could I have a recess to
Mhm.
clarify? Or can I yield to my chair? If that keeps happening, it's really gonna look like the committee hasn't done its work,
Right.
or the reporter doesn't know what they're talking about, because
Mm-hmm.
they haven't read the bill and understood it. We've seen this on the floor,
Mhm.
and I really want to protect you folks, that doesn't happen to you, doesn't happen to us as a committee, because we each have everyone's back.
Mhm.
We don't let the reporter the bill out there on their own. And if we find that they're starting to get in trouble, we come and help them out for that. But the best way to be prepared on the floor, because you never know what's gonna happen. You have to really understand the intricacies of the language that's before. And you're not gonna understand all of it, so reach out to, your colleagues here
Yeah.
in the committee, because we can help with it. But I really want to emphasize that, because we've seen some disasters on the floor, and I don't want that to happen to anybody here.
I don't want it to happen to me. So
So
I will be very
You want
intimate
someone-
with every sentence in
I
here.
have the record for quickest yield. I don't think they finished the question before I yielded to the chair. That's right.
And I would just say that, like, I don't want to create more work, but
Yeah, but.
well, as long as it's not policy related, like a value judgment, then Ledge Council usually is pretty willing to help, and they have done, at least a mile of my time, have done superb jobs of helping get cogent, I guess, presentation ready. Now, if you're going to add in narratives and things like that, you have to do that on your own. They can't do that and shouldn't. But they're, at least my experience, I'm trying to give you guys extra work. You guys have always been excellent whenever I've needed.
So that's what we do. We can provide a, objective section by section description of the bill, but anything beyond that, that's sort of persuasive is outside of our purview.
You know what I
You
mean?
can handle that with the people in here. They can help me with
It's a
that.
different
Yeah.
world. Let me tell you, it's a different world. Bill leaves the committee.
Yep.
And you'll get, and,
That's
and what's
interesting.
gonna be different between these two bills? One bill's gonna go right to the floor.
Mhm.
Gonna be on notice. If we pass if we pass 50 out today, it'll be on notice for Tuesday. When we come back, it'll be up for action Wednesday. This bill, Kids Apart, will be on notice Tuesday when we come back, but it will go to appropriations. Because there's money. So what appropriations does, they'll call in the reporter of the bill and have them talk specifically about the appropriations piece and how it's connected to the bill. So that kind of gives the reporter trial run in terms of what questions will be asked from members. So the two bills are gonna take a different path. So any other questions on 1 through 6? Let's go to page 3, lines 3, program support.
You know what? Sorry.
No, go ahead.
I need to back this up. Line 14. To me, that is where it implies and specifies that we're gonna provide housing and gas cards, and I know it doesn't say that. Where it says provide child-friendly visitation places.
Spaces.
Where within this construct do we talk about providing gas cards and hotel stays, et cetera?
There's no mention of that.
Just resources.
For in-person and virtual visits, so in-person may have to be facilitated somehow, yeah.
And
those were listed as
It's in-
suggested, those were listed as examples of the resources that they currently provide to parents according to individualized needs.
right,
Yeah, it could change too.
we don't delineate that anywhere.
Well-
It's just stated in general terms here.
Right. So the danger of enumerating too much is that if you do that,
Then you limit it.
exactly.
Yeah.
So the art of legislative drafting is being specific enough, but sufficiently vague at the same time.
Understand.
Yeah.
Get some nods up there behind you right now.
Being a politician too.
And there's a time for both. There's a time for both.
Thank you. Sorry.
Well, that's why we do a line by line. Because those are important things to vet. Well,
Still.
I think we can move to page 3. Program support, line 3. And general funding and annual report. Let's go down.
I think Ben in C, line 7 to 9, contingent on funding.
Mhm.
This is where you're intentionally using the family support program established.
Yes.
Because then that speaks only about the new stuff, not about the current facility.
Well, it would be both.
Would that limit them in any way? Because Lund has testified that they're doing some fundraising on their own. If we can't provide them with the necessary amount, they could continue to run, right?
Well, it doesn't prohibit them.
Okay.
Yeah, I had the same question. I don't understand how that doesn't prohibit them.
Right. If we don't appropriate anything, they could still run to some degree because they're doing stuff outside of what we're giving them.
Because you also have to read the statute as a whole, right?
Okay.
So this is statewide implementation and funding. Now, a prohibition would be something along the lines of any nonprofit entity selected to operate the program shall not support the operation of the program through the use of fundraising, grants, what have you. That would be a prohibition.
Okay. So
So,
it's
since
not
it's
explicitly forbidden, it's allowed, basically.
Right. Now, if you want to make that clearer, you can always do that. That's within the committee's discretion. So I present that as an option.
No, I'm not interested in prohibiting it.
I mean, clarifying that, notwithstanding or, this subsection shall not be construed to prohibit any sort of private fundraising on the part of the nonprofit entity operating the program or something to that effect.
I think that's necessary.
I don't think it's necessary personally.
Are we ever going to give them zero? I mean, that's, I hope not. Yeah, no, fair enough. Cheerfully withdrawn.
We don't talk anywhere about the program being phased in.
Yes, we do.
So I'm trying to find.
In the implementation portion, section 2 or section 4 rather, it's session law. It's not in the statute.
Yeah, but that's dealing with Chittenden and Norm.
Right, that's the first implementation phase. There haven't been any discussions on any implementation after that, like, or at least how it needs to be delineated.
It's the 2028.
Right, that's the intent. But again, it's not binding. It does not have the force of law, but it establishes the goal.
Or, oh, we're talking about a phased in process. But it's contingent on how you phase that in, how you bring it to the other facilities on funding that's available. And then that's when Connor mentioned, what couldn't we do language contingent on funding? We were thinking of the pretrial services.
Mhm.
And the one thing that we did put in on pretrial services was that the program, the court could not put a person in pretrial supervision unless there was appropriate funding for that program for your county. You remember we did that? And that's what I'm wondering if maybe we should do something like this. Then until there's appropriate funding, it can't be rolled out to the other MEP facilities. Because I think that was the thinking, right?
Yeah, so you,
And I'm not sure this language reflects that there's a phase in for the other facilities.
Right. There isn't, because it hasn't been a topic of discussion as far as like specifics. But when you look at the contingent on funding, shall operate only to the extent funds are appropriated for its operation. I think a reasonable interpretation is that presumes the scope of implementation. So if you only have 2 facilities that are operating, you only need to appropriate funds to the extent to support the program in those facilities. If you have all the facilities, then you need to appropriate money to that extent.
So that language shall operate only to the program established pursuant to this section shall operate only to the extent. So the program that is being established, if folks go back to page 2, lines 4 through, that's your program. That it will be parenting and family support to all incarcerated individuals who are parents and guardians. So that implies we're gonna do this program in all of our correctional facilities. Pending there needs to be appropriate dollars put towards implementing it.
But I thought that we were doing this just in two spaces.
We are.
Yeah, because we don't have enough money.
Right.
That's why we're phasing it in.
Yeah.
So
So
I think it's important to have the phase in. So if someone was reading this, they had someone incarcerated, they wouldn't think this is all going forward for all of our facilities. So I think there does need to be something about phased in to all facilities. We're starting with these.
What I was gonna say is when I read 2, you just said read 2, I think that very clearly implies that this is system-wide. It's not implies, it is system-wide. And then when you go to the other part, it does talk about those 2 specific places. Which is, yes, we're starting there, but when you, again, incorporate that first language on line 4, that's makes it clear that it is coming or could come everywhere. But whether or not that happens overnight, that's where the question becomes, right? Whether, like, are you gonna do all of these? But then that's taken care of by itself, in my opinion, because they have to come and they're not gonna come to us with a budget of, say, 10 million a year. And Ben's gonna stand up, so we go. You're gonna see something more intelligent than me.
No, I'm not meaning to cut you off at all. I just, again, reading the bill as a whole, in subsection A of section 128, the first sentence, the Department of Corrections shall establish the family support program to provide free parenting and family support to all incarcerated individuals who are parents and guardians. So the way that can reasonably be interpreted to operate is that means all the facilities statewide. You have to go to section 4 though, to show that we want to first do this at Northern State and Chittenden Regional.
So that's okay, the way it's written in here.
I mean, this is your decision. So I'm just providing an interpretation of that. Reasonable minds could interpret it otherwise.
And that's how I interpret it. And then also with the contingent upon funding is how it's not going to be an overnight thing, that it's gonna be phased, because nobody in their right mind is coming to ask for the entire thing the next year. So, I mean, I think it takes care of itself, is my point.
But it's totally within the committee's discretion to, if you want to get more detailed about what that phased implementation look like, you absolutely can do that. But the presumption that's established under 128 is that it is statewide. It's section 4 that limits that statewide implementation in that first phase, if you will.
That's
You reference
statute.
Right, but it has the force of law. But the reason why it was put in session law is because it really doesn't make sense to put it in the green books. As, you know, why would you have that initial implementation phase as something that's ever present, if you will? You can do it.
No, you don't want to do it. Troy.
What I like about how it's worded right now is it describes the fact that we're gonna move towards doing this statewide in all the facilities. It clearly identifies this is how we're starting it. I like the fact that it then leaves room for an organic sort of expansion, right? I can see the DO department or Lund saying, this is going incredibly well. We're getting requests to be either transferred to that facility or to expand it to a new facility. It allows for that expansion to happen sort of as the program evolves. That's what I like about how it's currently written. That's not necessarily saying we shouldn't do anything different, but I think I kind of like it as is.
So if we go to page 1, I know this is not in green books, but I'm asking, so where does it reside? The intent language in section 1B is the intent, General Assembly of the DOC develop a phase plan to expand the program to all Vermont correctional industries. Facilities by 2028.
Yeah.
It says it there now. The intent language does not go in the green books. What happens with the intent language once this becomes law?
It goes into the
White books.
white books.
So it's part of the act.
Yes.
So when people go back to look at the bill becoming law, they would go to the acts and resolves, and they would see the intent language there.
What were they thinking?
What
Now,
was the legislature thinking?
it's not a hard and fast rule to put intent in session law. If the committee deems it important enough, you can incorporate that into the statute itself. However, the only hesitancy that I would flag for the committee is that there is a time limited aspect in that intent.
Right, the 20.
So typically, when you're creating session law, anything that's time limited or has a sort of a temporary nature is more appropriate for session law than the green books. Because the green books are sort of the law that typically everyone refers to. Typically lawyers or practitioners who are administrating these laws, if they have questions about how it came to be, then they'll go to those books.
Because a lot of times people will ask what's the legislative intent.
Right.
Sometimes, most times you don't have legislative intent at the beginning of a piece of legislation, at a bill. That's why everything's recorded, because it's kept in the archives. And then if something goes to court and it comes, what's the legislature's intent for this? They go back to the committee proceedings, committee discussions, and that's where they listen to figure out what the legislative intent is.
That's only if there's an ambiguity in the law that the court needs to resolve.
So that's why everything we've always done here, used in the old days, was a tape machine. I'm really dating myself. It was a tape machine in the middle of the table. And those tapes went up to the archives. So you can go back to any committee meeting, 70s and the 80s and the 90s, and there's a tape for that committee. And you can figure out what the legislative intent is. Everything is recorded. Ken,
Thank you. In the meantime, you have addressed the things I was going to say, because again, I agree that the statement of intent includes the specificity regarding the phase plan. And I would only say, as you've been discussing this, if you felt the need to add more in section 4, where you talk about department shall first implement the family support program. At one point yesterday, you did talk about asking the department to, after 2 years, to present information to the Joint Justice Oversight Committee about plans to expand. And if you felt it necessary, we are frankly confident, based on the partnership, that this will happen on its own. But if you felt the need to be more explicit, that would be another place. Again, understanding the session law, you could be more explicit about looking to timeliness of when discussions of the next phase would occur.
Ken, on page 3, there's an annual report that DOC needs to submit. And number 2, considerations on any progress towards sustained statewide programming and gender parity. That's talking about program. Huh?
Yep.
I do think that works.
Okay.
Another suggestion, if you want to, again, be more specific, in section 4, you could potentially add a subsection to say, I don't know, in 2027, DOC shall come back with a phase implementation report. That's another option.
I think we need to, or based on that language that's right there.
Feels redundant.
Are you comfortable? I know you wanted to highlight phase in.
Well, I'm fine either way, but I'm just saying if someone was reading it and they were just looking at the intent. It doesn't easily flow to what section 4 is. And, you know, I didn't know if we could even reference section 4, but I think it complicates it even worse then. So I'm fine with it, leaving it as is. And hopefully, if people are confused by it, they can be, they'll just read it again like we.
Yeah, I think I know the answer to this, Ben, but just as I'm reading it, there's nothing that infers this is sort of a right that under like the equal protection clause of the Constitution, an inmate in Springfield could say, you know, I'm a parent too. I don't have these level of services, you know, but they do. It's
I haven't thought about that,
Liability
to be
on this?
honest. I have not analyzed that aspect. I do know that in some statutes, you can say that, you know, nothing in this statute shall be construed as creating a private right of action. So you could do that if you wanted to.
I'm just wondering if something like that should be included in this.
I'd-
Otherwise, we open
I'd have to look into it more to give you.
I don't want to
a
hold
more
things up.
definitive answer.
That would open up the can of worms. Because of going forward with the women's facility and offering a reentry facility,
Mhm.
the women, we don't have that for the men.
Mhm.
And that's been my concern from the get-go. We're doing that for the women. We're building a whole new facility, which we should. Should be doing a reentry facility. Let me tell you, it's years off doing this for the men, unless we can renovate that Chittenden facility and have it as a male reentry facility, knowing that they'll be going out in the community and working or attending their programming, because that's what the women are gonna be doing.
Mhm.
That's gonna raise some issues, I'm afraid. It's not that we shouldn't be doing it for the women, but we gotta do it for the men.
And they shouldn't go to Chittenden.
Well, you tear the building down and rebuild
Yeah.
on the land.
Yeah.
I mean, that has to be addressed. And just put
I mean,
down,
from an equal protection argument on that aspect, I mean, you know, it has to meet at least intermediate scrutiny. So that means that essentially the difference in treatment has to serve a very important state interest. It's not as high as strict scrutiny, which is a compelling state interest and has to be narrowly tailored. As opposed to, and that's because you're dealing with genders. So genders sort of have this intermediate scrutiny under the current Supreme Court precedent. We don't know how that might change. So that basically you need a really good reason why you're doing it for women as opposed to men, but that doesn't necessarily have implications on this bill to the same degree.
because we're very clear, our goal is to provide this in all.
I would argue that it's actually the opposite. To your point, Madam Chair, is that you're trying to make it so there isn't a distinction.
Right.
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 I retract the question.
Yes.
So let's get.
So retracted.
Let's get back.
So let's get back where we are. We were really on page 3, finishing up lines 10 through 17. There's the contingent on funding. Are we okay with that language?
Well, and I did, if the committee does, I did craft some language right now about, you know, making it clear that there's no prohibition on raising other funds. If I could share my screen right now, if the committee would like to see that.
Great.
Yes, okay.
Belts and suspenders.
Belts and suspenders.
So it would be here.
The use of other funds, including the use of grants and fundraising efforts by any nonprofit entity selected to operate the program.
Yeah, but what I'm afraid of is then will they look to fund it, thinking that they can gather monies.
There's also, I think within section 102 of Title 28, that the commissioner has the ability to raise funds other than those that are appropriated. So that's a commissioner, that's like a department ability. So there is another avenue to fund it, if you will.
Fine with this.
You folks want to add that new language? The bill.
I don't know if it's necessary. But I'm just my humble opinion.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think it's necessary. It doesn't bother me if it stands.
You know. I'm fine either way.
Not putting it in.
Not putting it in.
That goes for any program, doesn't it?
Whatever. I mean, what's the committee want to do?
Contingent on funding language is not in every program like this.
No, it's not.
Just leave it out.
You want me to strike this proposal?
I think it's okay as is.
Yeah. I don't-
I think.
Going once,
I'm not dying.
going twice.
Ben, it just better be bulletproof, so when I'm out there, I'm a winner.
You may want to rename reporting it.
I can't guarantee any results.
No, you'll be. Okay, section 4. This is not the statute. This is the green books.
You mean what?
Not the statute, the law. It's in the act.
Facts and results.
So are we sticking? Shall first implement, we're not changing that, right?
Right. And then go into the appropriations, and that's where it really clarifies.
And I've changed the numbers in the bill to those from the most recent testimony from London.
And what draft would that be?
0.2.
1.2.
So now on line 5 of section 5, it would read the sum of 115,424. And then in subsection B on line 9, the sum of 268,155.
It's good for the purpose of supporting. And then in B, money is for the purpose of establishing and supporting.
Yep.
A, you're silent, it's not establishing, saying for the purpose of supporting, as for Chittenden. In lines 9 through 12, the money is for the purpose of establishing and supporting the Newport program in Newport.
Mhm.
And then the effective date. And then you've changed the title.
Right, which I'll put that back up on the screen so you can see that. So that now, and that after passage, the title of the bill be amended to read an act relating to establishing the Department of Corrections Family Support Program.
Nice.
Very good.
So before we take any vote on this, do we have folks who are really not supportive of this bill and have some questions about it?
Nothing to add before what I already did, so.
Anything else? Are people ready to vote the bill out?
Mhm.
Yes, ma'am.
Happy to make a motion.
So I would entertain a motion, maybe I have to write it down. Or
Good job.
second.
Hold on,
You gotta write it down.
you're moving way too quick for me.
You didn't write it down?
Test this clerk out here.
JV clerk, yeah.
So I would entertain a motion that draft 1.2, we're gonna have to get the clean draft. Is voted out favorably.
So moved.
Second,
Moved and seconded. Draft 1.2, which is the version of this, which includes dollar amounts and title change. It's voted out favorably. Is there any further discussion before we call the roll? If not, Please call the roll. The way the roll is called, the vice chair and the chair go last, and then it's done alphabetically.
I didn't
Oh,
that list quite like that. I didn't.
You did. You got changed and last.
Yeah, I got them last, but I'm not certain I have.
Oh, you switched, Wayne. Well, you got the clerk last too, which is fine.
That's all right for now. Connor,
Yes.
You should say representative.
Representative Greer,
Yes.
Representative Hedrick,
Yes.
Representative Luno,
No.
Representative Minier,
Yes.
Representative Morrissey,
Yes.
Representative Winter,
Yes.
Representative Sweeney, yes, Representative Gregoire.
Yes.
Representative and Chair and
Yes, I'd say Representative Calfetti.
Representative Galfetti is absent. So I'm just going to check absent.
So the vote was 911.
Yep.
Emergency.
Yes, we got an emergency.
Who's here?
We voted our first bill out, folks.
Yay. Actually moved.
This is the other side.
So, Sean, you're still going to be the reporter.
I understand this as well.
Up to speed with this, don't worry.
We need the clean draft.
I'm gonna send it to Phil right now.
And then I'll work with you. You have to bring it down to the clerk's.
I think
So
we're
I'll send
getting
it to-
ready for St. Patrick's Day.
I know, it's all green. She's all green.
And Ken and your team, I will probably be in touch with you to discuss like the language you have in there and get some clarity about what it is to do with some of those things. So I'm, just in case I get asked any of that, I can answer it in an, intelligent way.
We're glad to provide you with any information or support that you need. I know Jess is glad to make you, give you whatever you need, and similarly, I'm also glad to do that.
Yeah, all right. Well, thank you very much. And that'll be when we get back here.
The town meeting week to do.
Yeah, I might be in touch with you next week.
Absolutely
Yeah.
fine.
Ken, you know the drill, the building, and going to probes. You know it well.
I'm familiar with it, yes. So I'm glad to, we'll certainly follow the bill as it moves along and provide
great.
again, whatever information, answer any questions as needed.
Great. Thank you. Thank you. So let's go to lunch. And let's come back at 1 o'clock and then we'll take up 8:50 in the week. Vote that.
I'll make some copies now.
Yeah, okay. So let's go offline.
Including 50 language now?
Committee, this